I work overnight at a radio station. Discover the 5 shocking rules they don't want you to know. The dim light flickered above the control panel, casting eerie shadows across the room. It was just past midnight when Jake settled into the worn-out swivel chair at WFJM, the local radio station known more for its urban legends than its music. He felt a chill run down his spine, a sensation caught between excitement and dread. This wasn't just another shift. Something felt off. They said the nights were haunted by the whispers of past DJs. But what Jake didn't know was how real those tales were. Behind the glass, the studio glowed with an unnatural hue, illuminating dust particles that danced like tiny spirits. The station's ancient equipment creaked and groaned. The old mics. They had a stubborn reputation for picking up voices that shouldn't be there. Just last week, the rookie had sworn he heard a woman's voice candy-coating his ear in a sweet lullaby, all while he was the only one on air. Others laughed it off, but Jake wasn't so sure. As he glanced at the clock 12:01, he felt an unsettling presence, like the weight of someone else's gaze on him. But eerie murmurs weren't the only mystery lurking in these walls. Rule number 1. Never, ever play the Midnight Caller. It was a track that seemed innocent enough on paper, but once the music played, the room turned cold, and listeners reported strange happenings. Doors slamming shut, dogs barking at shadows. The entire town had become a ghost story willing to jump from one listener's imagination to another. Jake's heart raced. He felt the pull of curiosity despite the warnings echoing in his head. He looked at the dusty records stacked in the corner. The temptation was almost magnetic. And yet, he couldn't help but remember the second rule. Never speak the name of the long-gone host who vanished during a live broadcast. His face was printed in the local papers, his name now a cautionary tale. With a hesitant hand, Jake reached for the mic, pulse quickening. You're listening to WFJM, broadcasting live from the heart of the city. Call in with your thoughts, your fears, just don't call in too late. He chuckled awkwardly, but the nervousness was real, knotted tight in his gut. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just then, the air shifted. A static crackle raced through the room. The lights began to flicker again, and Jake felt the comfortable chair slide slightly to the side, as if pushed by an unseen force. A gasp slipped through his lips as a cold whisper rustled behind him. Play it. Just once. He spun around, but the room was empty, yet charged with a palpable tension that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He glanced at the records again, and for a split second, doubt flashed in his mind, battling against raw curiosity. What would happen if he crossed that line? What were the consequences of breaking the unwritten rules of WFJM? It was a decision looming larger than himself, and Jake felt the weight of the station's dark history pressing down on him like a heavy fog. As the clock ticked eerily on, he couldn't shake the feeling that this night had only just begun. The clock chimed, shattering the silence like a gunshot. 12:03. Time seemed to warp and bend in the claustrophobic space, thick with uncertainty. Jake's gaze locked onto the vinyl record titled The Midnight Caller, its cover worn and frayed. With a sinister allure that begged him closer, he remembered the last DJ who dared to play it. Legend had it he vanished from the airwaves, never to return, his laughter echoing through the studio one final time. A chill crept into Jake's bones, cold fingers gripping his spine. He shook his head as though dispelling a cobweb, but the whisper returned. Play it just once. Heart pounding like a jackhammer, he reached out, fingers trembling as they brushed against the cool, dusty surface of the record. He took a deep breath as if preparing for a leap off a high dive. Curiosity and trepidation danced a dangerous tango in his chest. What could one song possibly do? It was just a record, right? With a shaky resolve, he placed the needle on the vinyl. The moment it began to spin, the atmosphere shifted. A low hum, almost a growl, seeped from the speakers, wrapping around him like a dark mist. The lights dimmed to a ghostly glow, giving the studio an ethereal quality, and Jake felt his pulse quicken, racing with the rhythm. Then came the voices, soft at first, layered beneath the music. Distorted echoes of laughter and whispers curled around the room. They were familiar, yet foreign. Each syllable seemed to twist Jake's stomach in knots as chills radiated through him. "Turn it off, stop!" he shouted to the empty studio, but it only fed the haunting melody that swirled forth. Suddenly, the call lights flickered on one after another. What was happening? Panic flickered through him. He hadn't even looked at the phone, all the lines flashing, but he only wanted silence. As if on cue, a voice broke through the static, jagged and sharp. "Jake," he froze. The voice. It was unmistakable. A cold sweat broke on his brow. It belonged to the DJ who had vanished, a name he had long ago learned to avoid. Memories of faded newspaper clippings and hushed tales flooded his mind. His breath quickened. Was this part of the show? Or had he unleashed something sinister? "Who is there?" Jake croaked, scrambling for the phone, his hand trembling as he picked it up. It felt heavier than it should. The lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat, then back to eerie dimness. Thud, thud, thud. Something heavy knocked against the studio door. That sound was all too real. Jake's heart thundered loudly, drowning out the whispers, turning into a wild rhythm of its own. Would anyone come to his aid? Just as he gathered the courage to face the door, it swung open with a screech, revealing the dimly lit corridor beyond. He strained to see through the shadow, but all he could sense was something lurking, something hungry for his fear. "Who is there?" he shouted again, panic clawing at his throat. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick enough to choke on. He felt a new presence, a chill that crept just past the doorframe, wrapping around him and freezing him in place. The air was laced with tension and anticipation, hovering right at the edge of something unimaginable. A shape began to materialize in the doorway. Jake found himself stepping backward, unable to break away. The music crescendoed, wild and untamed, echoing through the studio. The whispers grew louder, an overwhelming chorus shouting a single truth. You should have never played it. With dread cascading over him like a wave, Jake braced for what was coming. What horror lay on the other side? He was about to find out. But before he could turn to escape, the lights blinked out once more, plunging him into blackness. In that moment, he realized something deeper. There was no turning back now. No escape from the rules that bind the souls of WFJM. And as he stood frozen in dread, Jake wondered, did he have the courage to uncover what lay behind that shadow? Or would he be the next name on the station's cursed roster? Darkness wrapped around Jake like a tight noose. The oppressive silence buzzed in his ears, creating a cacophony of dread that made every hair on his body stand at attention. He blinked, trying to adjust to the pitch-black void, but it was as if he had been plunged into an abyss with no end. The whispers continued, twisted and unsettling, filling the air with ghostly accusations. You should have never played it. They taunted him, wrapping around his thoughts like tendrils of smoke. Could he turn it off? Could he rewind time? The possibility of what might emerge from the shadows made his heart race. The lights flickered ominously, illuminating a sliver of the studio, the half-finished paperwork, the faded photographs on the wall, the empty chairs that seemed to watch him. Then, just as suddenly, the darkness closed in again, swallowing everything whole. A low growl erupted from the speakers, distorted and throaty, heralding the presence of something not quite human. Sweat trickled down the nape of his neck and pooled at the small of his back. His fingers gripped the edge of the control panel. He wanted to scream, to disconnect from the darkness, but he was rooted to the spot, fear like chains binding him to the floor. Suddenly, the silhouette in the doorway shifted, its form fluctuating in the dim light. It crept forward, unnaturally smooth, with an energy that sent shockwaves through his legs. The growl morphed into a laugh, the kind that could peel paint off the walls, a blend of ecstasy and malice that made Jake's stomach lurch. Jahake, the voice coiled around him like a serpent. Did you miss me? He staggered backward, panic igniting within him. The DJ, the one from the whispers, the one the rumors warned about, stood before him, impossibly real, yet unearthly. His eyes gleamed like black holes, absorbing the dim light and leaving only shadows. Jake's every instinct screamed at him to run, yet he was trapped in place, heart racing like a wild animal caught in a snare. The DJ smiled, revealing teeth too white, too perfect for a human. Ah, yes. You're curious, aren't you? You want to know what happens when the Dawn Treader plays the Midnight Caller? What do you want from me? Jake croaked, his voice a fragile thread in the thick air. The figure stepped forward, the creeping darkness seeming to pulse around him. Nothing much, just your soul, and maybe a little fun. Jake's mind spiraled as panic surged. He fumbled for the control panel, desperately searching for the off switch. But the buttons seemed to be like rocks beneath his fingers, impossibly heavy. Stop this. You're not real. Not real? The DJ laughed, a sound that echoed through every crevice of the studio. Too late. The record is spinning, my friend. You called me forth. Clumps of fear twisted in Jake's stomach. It was a mistake, he shouted, but deep down, he knew every fiber of his being that it was too late for apologies. As the laughter grew in intensity, the shadows lengthened, closing around him like a shroud. He couldn't breathe. The stench of decay filled the air, forcing his instincts into overdrive. I have to get out of here, he gasped, glancing back towards the door he had entered. But that path was no longer an option. With a deafening roar, the speakers erupted, and the shadows swirled, becoming something tangible and monstrous. A tide of darkness surged forward, and Jake realized too late that there was no escape. Just as he stepped toward the door, the floor bucked beneath him, sending him sprawling into the fray. He felt the all-consuming darkness enfold him, taste the terror fresh on his breath. As he surrendered to its overwhelming pull, questions throbbed in his mind. What had he unleashed? Would he become another ghost within these cursed walls? As reality slipped away from him, one thought echoed sharper than the rest. He was never meant to play that record. As the world faded to black and the last remnants of sound dissolved into chilling silence, something began to stir. Somewhere deeper in the echoing void, a new voice whispered one that could change everything yet again. Welcome to the airwaves, Jake. Jake felt sensations wash over him, electric and surreal. One moment, he was engulfed by darkness. The next, he was standing at the edge of a vast, shadowy expanse, the DJ's laughter echoing endlessly around him. The air thickened, each breath a laborious task, as if he were wading through molasses. Where am I? His voice cracked, barely a whisper against an unseen wind that swept through the void. The DJ's form blurred and shifted, the darkness wrapping around him in tendrils, teasing at Jake's fears. Oh, you're right on time, my friend. This is where the magic happens, he cooed, the malice dripping off each word. Jake's heart raced. The laughter rode the currents of the air like an ominous tide, crashing down upon him. Panic gripped him. It was the kind of panic that sank into your gut, twisting and turning, demanding escape. What do you mean magic? What do you want from me? Ah, but you're already here, Jake. You've become part of the show, haven to you? You can't go back now. The DJ's voice seemed to come from all around him, wrapping him tighter and tighter. As he tried to comprehend the situation, he caught a glimpse of what surrounded him, figures dancing in the darkness, flickering like ill-formed shadows. They weren't just shadows. They were memories, fleeting snippets of past lives, experiences trapped here, just as he was. An inexplicable dread washed over him. Had he joined their ranks? Suddenly, a pulse of light shot through the murky darkness, illuminating the DJ's grotesque grin for a heartbeat. It felt as if the world were momentarily alive, vibrant with sound and color, but it dulled just as quickly, pulling him back into the suffocating void. A wave of despair crashed over him. Join us, Jake. It's quite liberating. The DJ's voice hissed with a mocking glee. All it takes is a little surrender. Without thinking, Jake screamed. The sound devoured itself in the darkness, swallowed whole. He had to regain control. Panic-crusted thoughts jostled for space in his mind. Focus. You've got to find a way. The studio of ghosts around him came alive with haunting whispers. Play along, surrender, become one of us. Their tones were sinuous, blending into an unsettling harmony that managed to pull at Jake's heart. Tugging at his willpower, he squinted into the abyss, straining for any hint of salvation, anything to cling to. The DJ stepped forward, eyes alight with infernal glee, an unholy flame flickering in the pools of their darkness. You see, The gift of the Midnight Caller is much greater than you can imagine. Your fears become flesh, your doubts fuel the world. Desperation morphed into clarity. I'm not afraid of you, he cried defiantly, even as doubt crept into his thoughts. And yet, here you are. The DJ's laughter rang out like a death knell, and with it, the shadows lunged, sweeping toward Jake like a wave. He braced himself for impact as terror tightened like a vice around his chest. Just as he prepared to be submerged, he remembered the power of choice, the threads of reality he could still weave. He locked eyes with the DJ, determination clawing its way to the surface. You don't control me. I can break the spell. The darkness paused, a surprised silence engulfing the air. The figures flickered, confusion spreading among them. Had he struck a nerve? No. The DJ howled, the shadows quivering in response, angry and instinctively recoiling. You're too late. With a surge of adrenaline, Jake plunged his hand into the swirling dark beneath him, reaching for anything that might snap him from this hell. The shadows pulsed, and the echoes of the studio morphed into tumult, darkness battling against the flicker of hope. For a fraction of a second, Jake felt himself lifted from the nightmare, a glimmer of light breaking through the oppressive weight of shadows. But the DJ lunged, clawing at him, a primal howl escaping those perfect lips. Then, everything shattered. The world exploded into chaos around him, sounds, colors, lights colliding in a violent crescendo, leaving him breathless. Jake landed hard on the studio floor, gasping and disoriented. The equipment hummed to life, the air electric with anticipation. He had escaped, but at what price? The walls pulsed with a heavy energy. Before Jake could collect his thoughts, a red light blinked furiously above the control panel, and the voice returned, this time a whisper laced with danger. Welcome back, but it's not over yet. He froze. The DJ's laughter echoed faintly in the distance, a sinister promise that things were far from over. What had he unleashed, and what would it cost him next? The air thickened, and as the silence hung desperately, Jake wondered just how far the grip of the darkness would extend beyond its twisted embrace. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a frantic reminder that he was now back in the studio. But how much of the nightmare still clung to him? The buzzing of machinery filled his ears, and the chilling sensation of being watched prickled his skin. He felt a throbbing ache in his head, remnants of the mind-bending horror he had just escaped. The voices of the trapped memories echoed in his mind, their haunting pleas wrapping around his thoughts like barbed wire. He staggered to his feet, disoriented, grasping for the counter to steady himself. As he blinked against the harsh brightness of the control panel, the red light pulsed ominously. Please, no, he muttered, retreating a step. Was it a warning? A call to action? Whatever it was, he knew he couldn't stay stalled, paralyzed by fear. Jake glanced at the studio door, the hinges creaking slightly as if beckoning him, teasing the boundary between safety and the unknown. An eerie tension hung over the room, like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. I need to get out of here, he mumbled, but his legs felt like lead. Before he could decide, the lights flickered, casting long shadows that danced along the walls, each flicker mimicking the grotesque movements of the figures he'd seen in the shadow realm. Panic swelled within him. Just when he thought he had escaped, it seemed the darkness had followed. Turn it off, he commanded to the machinery, though he could hardly remember how to operate it now. The DJ's voice slithered into his thoughts, taunting him mercilessly. You want to silence it? You have to accept me. With trembling hands, Jake started pressing buttons, desperate to regain some control. As a shortcut he had learned in his nights of working in the studio, he switched to a different frequency, hoping to drown out the chaos swirling in his mind. Then came a crackling burst, broadcasting an eerie static followed by the crackle of whispers from all corners. Jake, join us, he gritted his teeth, fighting against their pull. I want tea, he shouted. I refuse to be their puppet. Yet, a part of him trembled at the possibilities, the allure of letting go. The DJ seemed to promise a world without pain, a place of surrender. But he knew, somewhere deep inside, that it came at a steep price. In that moment of clarity, he remembered something: the data files. The records from the previous midnight shows. They were hiding something important, something that could illuminate the darkness and reveal the DJ's true nature. With newfound determination, Jake lunged for the desk, rifling through the files. His fingers moved frantically, a moment of hesitation. The whispers grew louder, drowning out his thoughts, begging him to listen. But he pressed on, pushing past the horror. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the studio door, a sound like shattering glass mixed with a guttural growl. His heart dropped. The DJ wasn't just a voice anymore. He could feel the presence closing in, the shadows creeping toward him menacingly. "Jake, you can't escape what you are," the voice taunted, now more corporeal, reverberating through the walls. It felt like the very studio was shifting, warping around him. An overwhelming dread settled around him as he found a folder titled Cursed Frequencies. His breath caught in his throat. What had he unearthed? Was this merely a trap meant to lure him deeper into the darkness? Without warning, he gripped the folder tightly and turned toward the studio door. The shadows swirled, pressing against him with a suffocating weight, each moment heavy with the potential for disaster. Doubt seeped into his mind, but so did a flicker of hope. Could this be the key to breaking free? With a forceful thrumming in his chest, he yanked open the door, pushing against the pressure of the darkness behind him. The hallway stretched out like a tunnel, pulsating with light, but shrouded in uncertainty. He took a breath, ready to plunge headfirst into whatever lay ahead. But as he stepped into the corridor, the floor quaked beneath him. The shadows twisted around, the corners forming shapes that distorted his vision. A voice thundered behind him, "You can't run from your fate." Before he could react, he felt a hand close around his wrist, yanking him backward as the darkness roared around him. The question hung in the air like thick fog: would he unlock the secrets of the Midnight Caller, or succumb to the very darkness he fought against? What awaited him in that flickering light wasn't just a path out. It was a confrontation, a reckoning with the shadows that threatened to claim him once and for all. The grip on Jake's wrist felt like iron, a vice pulling him back into the void that called his name. He couldn't afford to look down, but he could sense the weight of the darkness swirling, hungry and desperate. Instinct kicked in. He twisted hard, breaking free, but the air felt thick with whispers clawing at his sanity. "Run!" the voice screamed, shattering the whispers. It was no longer the DJ, it was something else, something more desperate. Jake's heart raced as he bolted down the hallway, adrenaline surging through him. Every step felt like an escape, but the shadows weren't far behind. He stumbled into a dimly lit room filled with old radio equipment, the walls cracked and peeling, like the memories they held. Dust motes danced in the feeble light, swirling like lost souls. The murmur of static buzzed eerily around him, whispering secrets and regrets. Jake's gaze landed on a dusty radio. Its speakers cracked, yet it seemed alive. He approached cautiously, the static harmonizing with his chaotic heartbeat. Was it a way out, or a deeper trap? His fingers brushed the knobs, feeling their cold metal beneath his touch. "Join us," came the chorus, smooth and inviting. It was intoxicating. He felt a pull, the call of release washing over him. For a moment, he considered giving in to let the darkness swallow him whole. But just as quickly, the screams from his thoughts, memories of friends, family, a life he fought for, shook him back to reality. "No," he spat aloud, shaking his head to clear the haze. It wasn't just his own past echoing in his mind. It was also those who had been lost to the DJ's seduction. He had to fight, to resist the tentacles of despair that threatened to wrap around him. He turned and saw the window at the far end of the room, a sliver of freedom glimmering through the grime. What lay beyond? The unknown. But standing still meant surrendering to the shadows creeping up behind him. He rushed to the window, pushing against its weight. To his shock, it swung open, a rush of wind filling the room. Cool air bolted in, invigorating him. As he leaned into the breeze, he could hear the DJ's voice growing angrier, louder. "You can't escape me, Jake. You're part of the show now." Jake paused at the edge of the frame. The ground below was a long drop, but desperation fueled him. He steadied himself and took a step back, gaining momentum. One breath, then a leap, time distorted as he fell. The ground rushed up to meet him. The weight of the world lifted, if only briefly, giving way to a sense of exhilaration and dread. Would this plunge shatter him into pieces, or was it the release he craved? He hit the ground hard, rolling on impact, pain radiating through his limbs. Gasping for air, he scrambled up, glancing around. He was in a deserted alley, walls huddled together like frightened shadows. Behind him, the studio loomed ominously, pulsating with flickering lights, laughter echoing in the night. But they weren't merely sounds of joy. They were taunts, promises of what he would never have again unless he turned back. "Jake!" The voice rang out again, sharper now, piercing the night. Terror gripped him as he recognized it, not just the DJ, but the remnants of those who'd been lost, echoes begging him to return. It was a reckoning etched in fear that he took a deep breath, trying to shake off the weight. He needed to know what lay ahead. Was retreating into the darkness truly the only way? The thought of running back was suffocating, but staying felt just as daunting, like stepping into the jaws of a beast. Suddenly, from the depths of the alley, he spotted a flicker of beacon. A figure appeared, standing in the shadows, partially obscured but unmistakably familiar. Was it possible? Could it be? "Jake, you must hurry. It's not what it seems." The figure shouted, and the urgency in their voice sliced through the haze surrounding him. With renewed determination, he stepped forward, torn between the bittersweet shadows of the past and the light teasing him from ahead. What did this figure know? And more importantly, would he trust them enough to follow? "Jake, come on." The figure's voice cut through the shadows like a knife. A face emerged from the gloom, bathed in the flickering light spilling from a nearby street lamp. It was Marissa, his best friend from high school, the one he thought had vanished into the depths of that darkness. "Marissa? Is that really you?" Relief surged through him, but it quickly collided with confusion. "What are you doing here?" "There's no time for questions," she hissed, glancing nervously at the studio behind him. "You can't stay there. You'll become part of the show." I thought her voice caught, and for a moment, despair shadowed her expression. "I thought I lost you too." Without hesitation, Jake rushed to her, memories flooding back, endless laughter, late-night talks about their dreams, and then the darkness that had ripped him away. A spike of hope ignited in his chest. But the moment was fleeting. "Tell me what's going on, please," Jake demanded, his voice breaking. The urgency in her eyes set his heart racing faster than fear alone could. She took a deep breath, glancing over her shoulder again. "We can't just stand here. The DJ is coming for you. He feeds on the souls of those who get lost in the haze. Once you're sucked in, it's over. But you can break free. We just have to get to the old bus station on 5th. It's a safe spot, but we've got to move." Jake hesitated, a gnawing unease curdling in his stomach. "What if it's a trap?" "There's no trap here, Jake. I'm not part of it." Her voice was fierce, a plea wrapped in desperation. The shadows seemed to dance, twisting in and out of the alley, eager to reach him. He looked back at the studio, its ominous glow luring him with promises of ecstasy and despair. The DJ's mocking laughter echoed in his ears, a sinister reminder of the grip he had on souls like his. "Trust me," Marissa urged, stepping closer. She reached out, her hand trembling but steady. "We need to get going before he finds us." Jake took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin. It was a tether to his past, a reminder of everything he fought to remember. They sprinted down the alley, the darkness clawing at their heels. "A few blocks ahead, turn left. We'll be fine." Marissa guided him, her voice sharp with urgency. Each footfall echoed like a countdown, a reminder that time was slipping away. They dodged trash cans and shadows, desperate for an escape. But just as they rounded the corner, the laughter grew louder, twisting into a menacing growl. The air thickened, electric with the DJ's fury. "You think you can run from your destiny, Jake?" The voice slithered around them like a serpent, wrapping them in a cocoon of dread. "You'll always return to me." Jake's breath caught in his throat. He turned to Marissa, panic rising in his chest. "What if we can't make it?" "Don't think like that." She pulled him forward, charging through the darkness. The alley tightened, walls pressing in as they ran. Each step felt like a race against oblivion itself. At the intersection, they paused only briefly, scanning for any sign of escape. "Is it just us? What about all the others?" He gasped. "Some are lost, but not all," she replied. "That's why we have to keep fighting. There are still those who can be saved." The shadows rippled, and a chorus of ghostly cries echoed around them, lost souls who had broken free. Jake's heart sank. "Jake!" Marissa shouted, snapping him back to the moment. "We go now?" But as she pulled him onward, something in him began to shift. Was it really that simple? Could he be their savior? A growing sense of responsibility ignited inside him. Wait, there is something I need to know, he yelled, unsure how to frame his question. The shadows thrashed, and in that moment, he glimpsed them, the lost faces of friends and strangers alike, trapped in the void. The weight of their silent pleas gripped him. I want to save them. I can't just leave. Marissa stopped, her eyes wide with surprise and fear. Jake, focus. You can't save everyone, not right now. It could cost us everything. We just have to get to safety. With the echoes of their cries ringing in his ears, he couldn't shake the emerging resolve. No, I have to try. They can't be left in there. No, Marissa shouted, panic suffusing her voice. You'll become one of them. Before he could voice his denial, the walls of the alley began to shift and pulse, shadows bending toward him, threatening to consume him. Jake, you have to choose. As the darkness enveloped him, Jake felt a surge of dread mixed with determination. Could he pierce through the void? What happens if he risks it all? The weight of their fate hung in the balance, and suddenly the reality of his choice hit him. With everything on the line, could he forge a path into the unknown, or would he be swallowed whole? The shadows beckoned, and Jake's heart raced as he took a deep breath. Was he truly ready for what lay ahead? As the shadows closed in, Jake's resolve ignited into a blaze of determination. No, I can't just turn away, he shouted, and with a fierce tug, he broke free from Marissa's grasp, darting into the swirling darkness. Jake, no? She cried, her voice echoing in despair, but he was already lost in the thrumming chaos, drawn toward the forlorn faces swirling around him. They were desperate, their wide eyes pleading for release. Each anguished expression lanced through him like a dagger that he pushed forward, instinctively searching for any sign of the trapped souls, willing to do anything to reach them. I'm coming, he yelled, his voice raw. The laughter of the DJ, that sinister melody, rang out louder, a mocking anthem taunting his courage. With an explosive surge, Jake fought his way deeper into the darkness. The lost faces flickered before him, urging him onward. He could almost touch them, grasp their hands, and pull them back to the light. A mother cradling her baby, a child playing alone, a lover reaching for another, each face stitched into the fabric of his very being. They needed him, but the shadows twisted and pulsed, an insatiable predator weaving through the night. You cannot save them, Jake. They belong to me. The DJ's voice slithered through every crack and crevice, a cold sneer layered in malice. Shut up, he screamed, clenching his fists, the weight of his choice crashing upon him. Could he really pull them free? Could he bear the risk? Jake! Marissa's voice broke through again, sharp and frantic. Get back. It's too dangerous. No, I want to let them suffer. He roared, his heart racing faster than he thought possible. Images of the lost flickered like strobe lights, each one blurring into the next, faces morphing into one another, swirling together in an ethereal dance of despair. The DJ's laughter crescendoed, the shadows closing in tighter, filling the air with a sinister energy. Jake felt a pull, a lurking dread whispering in his mind that urged him to abandon hope, to turn back before it was too late. But he couldn't, he wouldn't. With a final surge, he reached out, fingers stretching toward the nearest lost soul. I want to leave you behind. As he made contact, the world exploded in a wave of blinding light, warm and radiating with strength. For a moment, he thought he saw it, the escape route, the bus station glowing like a beacon in the storm of night. But the shadows clawed back, frantically trying to reclaim him. Fool! The DJ's voice boomed, fury crackling in the air. You can't fight fate. This is your destiny. Jake's breath caught again, fear gripping him like a vice. The light flickered in and out, a promise and a threat. He sensed the weight of the lost pulling at him, desperate for freedom, yet clinging to the darkness that enveloped them. Jake! Marissa screamed, desperation etched across her face as she struggled against the shadows that began to encroach around her. That he blinked, torn between his own survival and the souls reaching for him. Save them, Jake. If you don't, they'll devour you. The reality of her assertion crashed against him, a cold slap in the face. The choice was spiraling out of control. Could he truly risk himself for the hope of others? His heart pounded as he grasped the weight of his choice. In that moment, everything narrowed down to a single question. Could he hold on to his humanity while trying to save the lost? There was no time to think, only action. With a fierce flicker of resolve, fueled by hope and desperation, he tore himself away from the souls, racing back toward Marissa. But could he outrun the darkness closing in around them both? "Jake!" she cried again, a mix of fear and urgency backing her voice. But the shadows were swirling, a tide rising to drag them under. "Just hold on," he shouted, his heart on fire as he dashed toward her. In that frantic moment, Jake realized some paths lead into darkness, while others might offer a glimmer of light. He knew what lay ahead could either be a step toward freedom or a plunge into despair. Would they break free, or would the darkness consume them? Whole. As the laughter echoed, drowning in chilling certainty, the cycle of choices spun on a razor's edge, and they had only moments left. Jake lunged through the dim haze, every instinct screaming at him to escape the advancing shadows. He could feel Marissa's presence, a palpable thread tugging at his heart, but the pull of the abyss was ferocious. "Almost there," he shouted, his breath ragged, desperation clawing at him like the unseen hands of the lost intertwining with the darkness. As he sprinted, the DJ's laughter resonated ominously, wrapping around him like a chilling embrace. "Run, run, little hero, but you can't escape what you are." The words hung thick in the air, laced with venom, and Jake's skin crawled. He glanced over his shoulder, seeing the mass of shadows slithering toward them, hungry and eager to reclaim their prey. "Jake, hurry!" Marissa's voice crackled with urgency, grounding him. He caught a glimpse of her, her eyes wide and shimmering, reflecting both fear and fierce determination. He could sense the shadows creeping closer, senses heightened like a predator closing in on its target. With every ounce of strength, Jake pushed forward, the light of hope flickering in the distance, an ethereal glow where reality and the beyond intersected. Every frantic beat of his heart fueled his resolve, but doubt snaked through him. Would they truly get through? Was hope merely an illusion? Finally, they met, fingers intertwining amidst the chaos. Their connection surged, igniting warmth between them against the encroaching chill. "I've got you," he breathed, squeezing her hand tightly. But the shadows twisted, drawing strength from their fear, coiling tighter around them like a serpent ready to strike. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating the dark and revealing the snatched souls, mirrored in anger and despair. Among them stood the DJ, a grotesque figure bathed in shadows, pulsating with malevolence. "You think you can save them? You're merely prolonging the inevitable." His voice resonated like thunder, echoing across the void. "No, I want to let them go," Jake shouted defiantly, channeling every ounce of determination into his words. The light flickered again, brighter this time, reminding him of what he was fighting for. He couldn't back down now. Too many souls had suffered, and he wouldn't let their cries drown in hopelessness. Marissa pulled him closer, her fear palpable but her spirit unyielding. "We need to break free. Together," she urged, staring into the stars of the persisting light that beckoned from beyond. It resonated with whispers of liberation, tempting them to dive headfirst into the unknown. With a surge of courage, Jake took a step forward, consuming the remnants of doubt swirling in his heart. "We can do this, Marissa. Trust me." The shadows reacted violently, writhing like living entities, furious at his defiance. They clawed at the edges of his consciousness, shrouding him in darkness. As he took another step, the space around them trembled. The DJ's voice twisted into a snarl. "You think you know freedom? You are mistaken." The ground beneath them cracked, fissures blossoming with shadows, threatening to consume them whole. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline transform into fear. The shadows whispered, taunting him, "You'll become just like us, Jake." The air tasted bitter, and the threat loomed murkily above them. He couldn't let that happen. They would not face this fate together. "Hold on," he yelled, and with every ounce of conviction, he propelled them forward, tearing through fear and shadow alike. The light shimmered ahead, but a powerful force yanked at their very souls, drawing them back. He felt Marissa's grip tightening, and the intensity in her eyes sparked something deep within him. "Trust in us, we're stronger," Jake cried, urging them toward the light that pulsated with promise. The shadows shrieked, frustrated whispers beckoning them back into despair, but he refused to succumb. Just as they began to close in on the light, a chilling laugh echoed from everywhere, the DJ's voice saturating the air with malice. You cannot escape. Time slowed, chaos around them morphing into a heartbeat drumming ominously in his ears. Were they truly about to break free, or was it just another delusion shadowed by deceit? Jake felt his heart pound in rhythm with Marissa's, each pulse echoing their shared determination as they surged forward. But would their hope be enough to pierce through the overwhelming darkness? As they lunged into the light, he couldn't shake the dawning thought, was freedom waiting on the other side, or merely a deeper plunge into despair? Lights flickered, the weight of choice hung heavy, and only one question echoed. Would they find salvation, or would the shadows swallow them whole once more? The moment Jake and Marissa broke through the shimmering veil of light, a sensation washed over them like a tidal wave of warmth crashing against their fears. For what felt like an infinity, they floated, suspended in a world where the shackles of darkness couldn't reach. Is it over? Jake breathed, the edges of his vision filled with soft luminescence. There was a stillness, an echo of laughter gone quiet. He looked around, expecting the DJ's twisted form to materialize, yet only serenity enveloped them. Marissa turned to face him, her eyes wide with disbelief, yet contentment threaded through the fear that had previously shadowed them. It feels like freedom, she whispered, a smile breaking through the surface tension. But before their victory could settle, the darkness on the edge of their consciousness stirred, an insidious whisper curling around them. You think escaping is that easy? You still belong to the airwaves. The voice slithered through the stillness, chilling their newfound peace. Not anymore, Jake shouted, defiance blooming within. Together, they took a step forward, pushing against the prickling sensations of lingering shadows. As they moved, the air shifted. They found themselves standing at the edge of a clearing, a place untouched by the haunting echoes of WFJM. The old studio loomed behind them, a monument to darkness, its windows cracked, its walls peeling, remnants of bygone echoes that no longer held sway over their souls. Look, Marissa pointed, joy overtaking fear as she motioned toward a distant, powerful light breaking through the trees. It was the old bus station, bathed in golden glow, offering sanctuary. We made it. Jake laughed, relief flooding his chest, but something deeper gnawed at him. What about them? He asked, glancing back at shadows swirling behind them. We can't just leave them. We have to try. Marissa's expression turned somber. Some souls are too far gone. But we can't stay here, Jake. We need to carry their memories with us and share their stories. An understanding washed over him. It wasn't about saving everyone. It was about moving forward, letting them be free by honoring their existence in every retelling. Then let us go, he whispered, determination surging through him. Jake grasped her hand tightly once more, forging ahead into the light. As they reached the bus station, it felt like they had stepped into another world. The sounds of joy and laughter rang out like bells, washing over them. It was people gathered, a community. The warmth wrapped around them, a reminder that hope existed beyond despair. Hold on a second, called an excited voice. Jake turned to see old co-workers, friends from the station. We thought we lost you. Jake felt a lump in his throat, and emotions surged through him. I almost didn't make it. But instead of the shapes of ghosts, there were smiles, understanding, compassion. These were the anchors that had been missing from his existence. If on cue. The radio beside them crackled to life, and the soft tones of music filled the air. It was beautiful, a melody untainted, carrying laughter and memories. They had escaped, brought together by resilience and a sense of purpose. With tears of relief, he whispered, "This is our new beginning." Together, Marissa agreed, smiling brightly. They were no longer defined by fear or the shadows of WFJM. They would chart their own course, sharing stories of loss and hope, ensuring no one would be forgotten in the sweeping dark. Jake took one last look at the fading silhouette of the studio before stepping into the light. His heart finally unburdened. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, golden rays danced across the earth, symbolizing not just an end but the promise of dawn. They walked forward, hands entwined, ready to embrace whatever came next. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. You can't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Join the community and be part of our journey. Your support makes all the difference.